One of the most beautiful aspects of life that I think is a little bit underrated is this moment of realization that I'm going to come to. But it starts with Tower card playing itself out in your life. Something happens and life is not the same anymore. Something comes crashing down. Something destabilizes you completely. Your sense of stability, your sense of sanity is at risk. And especially when somebody else is included, so somebody else, particularly somebody, fails to act according to your expectations. Maybe they didn't show up for you, maybe they disappointed you, maybe they lied to you and you found out, maybe they took something from you and it wasn't fair, maybe they died. That happens too. People die and they leave you without them and it sucks. Whatever it might be. Or if you dare to do something. You dare to do something, to come out and show it to the world, or to believe in yourself, or to create something, or you dare to take a risk, you dare to try something, and it went wrong. You failed. Yeah, it sucks. But then the most beautiful aspect of that is when you realize that it happened for good. But you organically come to realize that. You come to realize that not as an imposed belief that you think that you have to think that way because that's the right way of thinking. No. You swift through your emotions, you go through the roller coaster of it, you experience the madness of the situation, and then eventually, organically, purely, you come to the point of realizing that it's good that it happened. You're thankful that it happened. And even these people who disappointed you deeply, in whatever way, shape or form they disappointed you, you can, maybe not to them directly, but at least in your mind's eye, you can look at them and say, thank you. Thank you for playing the part in the theater of my consciousness. Perhaps they did something to you that was really, really necessary to be done. Maybe they did something that you were supposed to do yourself, but you were kind of like, nah, maybe not, maybe later, maybe never, and then they did it because it had to be done. Maybe they did a favor to you by letting you see something that you just couldn't see before. And on a human level, it seems like, oh my God, how could they? How could they do that? How could they say that? How could they be like that? But on a soul level, you can 100%, you can look at them and be like, thank you very much. And you can almost in your mind's eyes at the same time see them being like, you're welcome, or my pleasure. That's how it is when you realize that everybody is you. And when somebody does something to you, it's basically you doing it to yourself. And there is nothing wrong with it. And so, while you are navigating through this havoc of your life, in one moment you were emotionally attached to your reality, to people around you, you loved somebody, you had plans, and you thought that the next morning when you wake up, life is going to be just same old like yesterday. And then all of a sudden something happens and it's not the same anymore. And now you're in the discomfort of it. You can't sit with yourself. You're anxious, you're sad, you're disappointed, you're angry, you're lost, you're disoriented, you can't believe this happened. You're still looking for an opportunity that this might not be true. And because we're living in this digital age, and because we're all connected on one level or another somehow, your computer and your devices and your phone knows what's going on with you sooner than you know. And so while you're still trying to make sense of everything, There are already 10 people lined up in your algorithm trying to explain to you what just happened. They're trying to give you guidance, they're trying to help you, they're trying to navigate you somehow because they know. Or somehow they just happen to be there and it seems like it's just perfectly orchestrated. Maybe you're in a situation where you want to call somebody and there's nobody to call. Maybe you're in a situation that you're in a complete liminal space where it feels like it's just you on the planet. And there are your devices with people like me speaking to you. And then you listen to them, especially those that use tarot cards. And then they say something like, okay, here we have Tower and 10 of Swords and the World card. Oh my. Something came crashing down. But don't worry, it was for good, because the universe has something better in store for you. Just let it go. Embrace the new beginning. While you're still in disbelief that something like this even happened, how does that make you feel? It makes you feel horrible. Does it help? No. It puts a pressure on you that you have to keep moving into the future while you're still picking up the pieces of yesterday. So what if the failure or whatever happened that was a pure devastation of your life, take it as it resonates. I'm primarily going to focus on a failure because that was something that was very I'm trying to smell the air. That was very present in my energy field. So I'm going to talk about failure, but you take it as it resonates. What if the point of that was not to let it go and move on into the future? Something better will show up. Sometimes that's actually true, that's actually accurate. In many cases it is, and you can also see it as you move into the future from this type of events. No matter how devastating it used to be, how extremely difficult it used to be to go through such events. And sometimes no matter how much you really 100% of yourself, you really wanted things to be different. You try to manifest them, you try to fix them, you try to bring everything that crashed down, you try to bring it back together, and it failed. And you had to double go through this process of accept it and move on. And it's horrible, it's difficult. And then a few years down the line, you look back and you realize, like, actually, I'm so glad that it didn't work out. Thank God it didn't work out. Because only then you realize that it would take you in places where you actually really don't want to be. Rejection is protection kind of a way. But what if the failure that you just experienced isn't about accepting the defeat and moving on? What if it isn't about changing your name, changing location, moving to the other side of the planet and starting a brand new life where nobody knows you, where you can repeat the same mistake again? What if it's not about that? What if the failure is first and foremost the test of the strength of your character, especially in the times when you see your destination, you know where you want to go, you know who you are, you know what you want to do, you know what you're about, you know what everything is about, you have inspiration, you have fire burning inside of you, you have everything pretty much sorted out, and you go. And then on the way there is like a major obstacle. It looks like you jumped and there was nobody to catch you, and now you just fell down on the asphalt with your face and you're crushed. What if that's a test of the strength of your character? What if that's here to test you? How much do you really strongly know where you're going, who you are, what you're doing, and what is it all about? How much are you rooted in that knowing? And if you're not, it shows by how you respond or react to it. If you fall apart, there is maybe some adjustment that needs to be done. And there's nothing wrong with it. It doesn't mean that you're not ready. It means that there's still something that you can take care of. What if this is an opportunity where you can, still despite the circumstances, still despite the world not really catching up to you, you can still choose to believe in yourself? What if it's not a failure? What if it's just an opportunity for you to believe in yourself even more? What if it's an opportunity for you to be really nice to yourself and treat yourself really good? Especially at a time when nobody else seems to do so. Especially at a time when it seems like the whole world is against you. Especially then, you can choose to be good to yourself. What if that's an opportunity for you to be good because nobody else doesn't seem to be good to you? What if it all happened the way it did so that you can show yourself love and care that the world didn't give it to you? So that you can actually evaluate what type of relationship do you have with yourself on all possible levels. On physical level, do you allow yourself to rest, to relax, to eat well, to not eat if you don't feel like eating, to listen to what your body needs? If your body needs to shower 3 times, although you already did 2 showers, shower 3 times then. It's your opportunity to listen to your body and treat yourself well. It's an opportunity for you to learn how to treat yourself well and how to actually listen to your body. On an emotional level, it's an opportunity for you to allow yourself to experience whatever emotion needs to be experienced. Sometimes you gotta cry, sometimes you gotta be angry. Sometimes you just have to shut down and be quiet. But allow yourself a space to do so. And then on a mental level, what is the most loving thing that you can think in this moment for yourself? Wouldn't it be the most loving thing to allow yourself to fail? Allow yourself to learn from that experience and allow yourself to try again. What if this whole experience of failure is actually to strengthen your bandwidth within which you allow yourself to fail comfortably? Not just, oh, I failed, so now I'm gonna hide and hopefully I don't fail next time. No, I mean, go do it next time. But do it in a way that you invite failure with like, come on, show me. Hit me. What if this is an opportunity for you to come to that level where you're like, failure? I'm not afraid of that. What if this is an opportunity for you to strengthen that bandwidth where you can allow yourself to fail comfortably and where you can allow yourself to keep showing up and keep trying and not allow, just like strengthen the core of yourself to the point where you don't allow failure or perceived failure or failure from the outside to determine how do you value yourself and how do you orient yourself. When I was in that position where I seemingly failed, and then I listened to people speaking to me through my devices, and they all sounded like, oh, looks like you gotta let it go and, start something new. There's something better for you. Maybe, you have to, maybe you're yet to find out what next is there for you, where you can succeed. And there I realized, who is narrating your life? No, really, who is narrating your life? This is the moment where I realized the difference between fate and destiny. I never really cared to find out, especially because there are some higher mystics that I learned from who they themselves didn't know what's the difference, so why bother? Everybody has their own definition, but I found my own. And that was that the destiny is when you have a destination, and you can have infinite amount of destinations. There is not just one. You can have as many destinations you can think of. But destiny is when you have a destination and you take the task of figuring out in this time-space reality, how do you come from A to B? How do you get from here to there? That's destiny. When you give yourself a chance to figure these things out. Fate is when you're standing in your life in this haze of same old, nothing's ever changing. You're kind of looking outside of yourself into like, maybe this luck strikes me, and maybe this luck strikes me, and then you're hoping that maybe something strikes you, but you're not even looking at the luck directly. You're looking at somebody else to tell you if you're going to be lucky. And of course they say that you will. If you just go their own direction. That's fate. Fate is when you give your power to something else or somebody else. You just let somebody else to spin the wheel of fortune for you. Pulled some cards. I'm gonna pull more. I like my deck here. I'm using the Deviant Moon Tarot. I love that tarot because it's very... it seems very dark at first, but it's actually... I don't know. I vibe with it a lot. And the cards that I already have on the table, but I'm going to pull more. The cards that I'm already having on the table are 8 of Wands in reverse, Knight of Swords in reverse, 5 of Pentacles, and the High Priestess. A little bit of stagnancy as a result of perceived failure. Maybe you yourself are now shaken inside out, and maybe you realize through this experience that maybe you really don't want to go in that destination that you picked for yourself. Maybe this experience was a little bit too much for you, and you realize that maybe you don't have a nerve to go through this again and again. And that's okay. It's totally fine to change your destination all the time. You learn as you go. You couldn't possibly know that this isn't for you. But if you're truly, really devoted to your destination and who you are and an agreement that you have between you and you, then it's about accepting that there's always going to be obstacles and taking that as part of the daily life. There is always going to be obstacles, there is always going to be fears and uncertainties and uncomforts. And you can either lose your power to them and let them define you, or you can define yourself to be greater than any obstacle that is standing in front of you. And take any obstacle as a test of character. And it's not for everybody. It's really not. And the 5 of Pentacles and the High Priestess tell me that, just like in the whole this video, what we're doing here is we're reevaluating failure. And what does it mean? Is it really a failure if somebody doesn't believe in you? Is it really a failure if you believe in yourself so hard that the fact that if your inner circle don't believe in you, you know that you believe in yourself so much that you know that your inner circle is not the only circle on the planet. There are many other circles. There are so many other circles that would give so much to support you, no matter what you're doing. The High Priestess here is calling for reevaluation of what failure means to you. Is it really the end of the world? Or is it an opportunity? An opportunity to learn something. Maybe it's about how you did what you did. Maybe it's about what tools you used. Maybe it's something really practical, but maybe it's also just about how do you treat yourself in this process. And there's this space that I ideally see, and that is this bandwidth that you need to have in your toolbox, in your sense of self, in your self-concept, in your in your aura, and that is this bandwidth within which you are so free that you allow yourself to try, you allow yourself to fail, you allow yourself to succeed, you allow yourself everything. There is nothing that you're not allowed to have, do, or experience, including failure. And then when you have failure integrated into that bandwidth, like I said, you can come to the, you can do something else again, and you can invite failure into your existence. And why I love this deck of cards is because in the book that describes all of these cards, the author says that has a personal story, and the personal story is that when he was a child, he was very aware of the unseen world around him. And so when he would go to sleep, he would sometimes be awakened by the man, or I don't know how he called him, but basically the dark man that was in his room while he was sleeping. And he was there for very many years until he started becoming aware that he can also confront that man. And so he decided to do so. And he decided to one day look under the bed, open the closet, look for any space in a room where the man could be hiding. And he hasn't seen him ever since. Because what was really important was to face your fear directly. And just be willing to show up. And sometimes that's enough for the fear never to show up for you again. Because all it wants is your bravery to face it. And the same with failure. If you're afraid of failing, if you're afraid of being collectively cancelled, ignored, disrespected, whatever, left behind, abandoned, heartbroken, all of it is valid. But if you're really into having a destiny versus having a fate, then you don't let anything to define who you are or who you're not. You use that as a tool to define yourself, where you define you with the help of that. You don't let that to define you directly. I have a Fool at the bottom of the deck. And sometimes that's all that's necessary. 4 of Wands, 9 of Pentacles, and 7 of Swords in reverse. 7 of Swords in reverse in this deck also speaks about learning from your mistakes. Because 7 of Swords upright is a stupid person who does the same mistake again and again, completely unprepared, no skills, and expects the best results and hopes that everything will work out for the best. Lives in hope. But that's not a way to go. 7 of Swords in reverse speaks that you've learned from your mistakes. 9 of Pentacles is the stability that you're seeking, first and foremost within yourself. When you know who you are, where you're going, what you're doing, and what you're about, then everybody else is just... I'm not here to teach manifestation, but in manifestation communities they explain it very well, and that is that the external reality always needs a little bit longer to catch up with who is it that you decide within yourself who you want to be. You find stability within yourself, and then everything else follows. The house blooms, people hold hands. Beautiful. I've also looked into the Red, Blue, Black and White Storm deck, and one tile that spoke to me about this energy is the extinguished fire. Extinguished fire. Did I say it right? Extinguished fire, exactly. Which speaks about you're having a flame, you're having a fire, you're having an inspiration, a burst of energy, you have something to give. And then somebody comes and just throws a bucket of water on you and says no. But in this tile, not all is lost, because in the very middle of it, And you can test it yourself. Start a fire and then throw a bucket of water on it. You'll see that in the middle there's still going to be some, I don't know the English word for it, amber? I think amber is the one thing that is flying around. The camera stopped recording, but you know what I mean. So when you have a fire and you have wood burning and then you throw a bucket of water on it, it's not immediately going to be all dead, because the wood that burns really deep inside is still going to burn deep inside. And in Croatian we call it žar. So you can extinguish the flame, maybe they can extinguish the flame, but just for a moment, because this žar, maybe that's a moment where you learn a Croatian word, žar, which means this part of the wood that still burns, not burns, but still glows, even after you put water on it. And has a potential to start a fire all over again. That is still active within you. And then it's up to you. Do you wanna start the flame again? Or do you want to put it to rest? Oh, I didn't tell you how I actually got to that energy. Because I have a spider as a pet, I also have mealworms as a food for the spider. And mealworms, I don't know if you know, but they turn into darkling beetles after a while. So some of the mealworms turned into beetles, and I didn't know what to do with them. So I googled, what do people do with darklings? And the first information that I found was that people either throw them in a compost or you just use them for breeding new mealworms. There's nothing in between. And in the moment when I found one, it was when my tarantula freshly molted. And if you know anything about tarantulas, you know that they're very vulnerable after they molt. They're so vulnerable that a little beetle can kill them. So I found one while she molted, and I didn't know what to do with him, so I put him in the compost. And then I felt sorry for him because he was really cute. He was so cute, he was very charming, and I was like, well, you know, should he really live in a compost? And I decided to rescue him from the compost, and I did. And then I decided to build a terrarium, like a really nice terrarium. And I found really nice plants that I put inside, and I built a little palace for him and for his friends too. So now I have 4 darkling beetles that I could have just thrown in the garbage, but I didn't. I gave them a second chance at life, just like you can also give yourself a second chance at life after you experience something like a failure. Treat yourself nicely. Feed yourself nicely, talk to yourself nicely, respect yourself, especially if people around you and the world doesn't have respect for you, you respect yourself. You deserve it. Thank you for being here. Good luck.